We got Steelers, Eagles this week. Battle for Pennsylvania. Steelers are at 10-3. Eagles 11-2. And I compare this game to, do you remember when we played the Chargers in week 3? And we talked about how similar we were, the similar styles, two teams with good coaches, physical brand of football, good defense, run the ball, talented quarterbacks, all that stuff. And it would just come down to who plays better on this given day, right? Who makes the splash plays? Who makes the play or two down the stretch to come out of the stadium with the win? I think this Steelers-Eagles game is pretty similar. We got two very, very similar teams. Two teams that play the same style, run first on offense, have an identity of being physical on offense. Defense can stop the run, can stop the pass. And I do think Tomlin has the edge in coaching over Sirianni. But Sirianni, for all the crap that he takes, is a pretty good coach, I would say. He must be doing something right. For his first, his 3-4 years as an Eagles coach, he gets them to the playoffs. Turns them around from a 4-12 season or a 5-11 season the year prior with Peterson. Gets them to the playoffs. They get bounced first round by Brady. Then they get to the Super Bowl last year, make the playoffs, but finish the season pretty poorly. And then this year they're 11-2. So 4 years in a row, dude gets the Eagles to the playoffs, has a good record, 20%. All I'm saying, he must be doing something right. I think he is a good coach. But yeah, that's how similar these two organizations are right now. I feel like good coach, good defense, offense, physical, run first. That's the identity. Steelers 10-3, Eagles 11-2. Eagles are on a 9-game winning streak. Steelers won 7 of their last 8. So this is just going to come down to, I think, who plays better on Sunday. And that being said, let's talk about how the Steelers can come out of this game with a win. Like, what ways do we have the edge over this Eagles team? And I think we have enough here that it's going to help us get out of the stadium with a win. I think we do have some actually pretty significant edges over this Philadelphia Eagles team. And first, let's talk about the quarterback play. Because even with Jalen Hurts playing solid, he's a top 10 guy right now. Over the last 3 games, the Eagles passing game hasn't been there. There's a reason that A.J. Brown is upset, and there's drama in the Eagles locker room. Brandon Graham is going on his podcast and saying, yeah, A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, they used to be friends. I don't know what's going on. You mean to tell me he'd be saying that if A.J. Brown was getting 100 yards these last few games, $150, 2 touchdowns? No, I'm sure their friendship would be great. I'm sure it'd be all well. But no, the Eagles passing game has been not that good. And part of that is they have been running the ball really well. Like, I will give credit where credit is due, and they've been getting out of these stadiums with wins. So they haven't had to be like that amazing passing it. But Jalen Hurts, he hasn't been the same as the 2022 version of himself. I think we all can admit that. He's still playing good. I still think he's one of those guys that can lead your team to a Super Bowl, play good in a Super Bowl, and you can win a Super Bowl with him. I do think he's in that top 10 for sure. But I don't think he's playing as good as Russell Wilson. And typically when you have games that it's good on good, and it could come down to a single play in the second half, a play in the fourth quarter, some critical third downs. Sometimes it's the quarterback just making a play, elevating his team. And Russell Wilson has been doing that a lot for the Steelers this year. He's 6-1, and we get to see it on a week in and week out basis. Last week, second half, absolutely cooked. Those 2 touchdowns, back-to-back series, closed out the game against the Browns. It was over at the end of the third quarter. He's playing at a more elite level than Jalen Hurts. Now, I'll give Hurts credit for his running ability. That's something he brings to the table that's more prevalent than Russell Wilson, for sure. But in terms of passing, man, Steelers got a good run defense. I'll give respect to Saquon Barkley, but if we can make the Eagles somewhat one-dimensional, I almost like laugh at myself for saying that. So it's like somewhat one-dimensional because they're going to keep running the ball. Don't get me wrong. With Saquon Barkley, they're going to keep running the ball. But if we can neutralize him and put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands to where he got to pass it in that second half, and maybe it is like a little bit of a Russell Wilson, Jalen Hurts, you got to go toe for toe. I'm not going to say a duel where they're throwing it 40, 50 times a game, but it's like, all right, there's a third down. There's a time that you are going to have to pass. Either team, someone's going to have to step up through the air. I got my faith in Russell Wilson right now. And that's not, how is that a hot take with how he's been playing this year? It's not a hot take at all. And given what his resume is, I like Russell Wilson over Jalen Hurts. And I think that is an edge for this game in the Steelers' favor. Quarterback. I was just talking about that last segment whenever we discussed who was the biggest offseason acquisition. I'm talking about the quarterback being the most important position. So if I'm telling you I like my quarterback over the other team's quarterback, that's an edge. That's a decent edge for my team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. No doubt about it. The other one is turnovers. Now we're talking about the Eagles and their defense. Got a good run-stopping unit. That front seven's nice. We know who they got on that D-line with Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis. They got the edge rushers, Nolan Smith, a Josh Sweat, Kobe Dean, Zach Bond. He's playing pretty decent. And then their secondary, they're top 10 in pass defense. Got the safeties, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Reed Blankenship, Darius Slay at corner. They drafted Quinyon Mitchell in the first round. On the other side at corner, Cooper DeJean at that nickel spot. He was their second-round draft pick. Like, solid defense, top to bottom. Just like ours. We're good at stopping the run. We're good at stopping the pass. The statistics over the course of the season show that, reflect that. Same thing with the Eagles. But the thing that the Steelers have over the Eagles is the takeaways. We're number one in the league in takeaways. And for the Eagles, they're middle of the pack. And they wouldn't be middle of the pack if it wasn't for that Cowboys game where I think they got 5 turnovers. And that might have been Cooper Rush's first start. Like, all right, bro, you were stat padding a little bit on the takeaways there. Took advantage of a dumpster fire team. But either way, middle of the pack in turnover. They don't do it like the Steelers. And again, what can happen in these good-on-good type of games, these close type of games? What do you think can change the course of who wins and who doesn't? If you go sack versus forced fumble, pass deflection versus interception, like those are the little things that can change a game, that can flip the field, that can give one team an extra 3 points when they didn't necessarily deserve it, or they weren't necessarily in position for those 3 points. It's the turnovers, it's the takeaways, it's those little things add up over the course of whenever good teams are playing against each other, whenever you have playoff type of matchups. And the Steelers, we're what, 13, 14 games into the season, the Steelers do the turnovers thing. It's not a fluke. It's not this one-off thing. No, we get turnovers on a week in and week out basis. The Eagles, they don't get turnovers, not as much as the Steelers do. So if I had to bet who's going to win this turnover battle in this game, it's going to be the Steelers. Now, granted, Jalen Hurts has done a decent job at keeping the ball clean. Same with Russell Wilson, though. He's been doing that at a high clip, too. But again, that's what we're looking for right now. Who takes the ball away? Who makes the splash plays? Who has those X-factor type of plays? And it's the Steelers over the Eagles. This is the stuff you got to weigh. This is the stuff you got to look at whenever you're comparing two really good teams. And then the last one is the special teams. And I'm specifically talking kicker. Chris Boswell versus Jake Elliott. Chris Boswell is the best kicker in the NFL right now. Whereas Jake Elliott, to be nice, is not. Boz is 92% on his field goals this year. Jake Elliott is 75% on his field goals this year. And then if you want to talk about from 50, Boz is 11 for 13. Whereas Jake Elliott has not hit a 50-plus yard field goal. He's 0 for goose egg. It's almost like whenever the Ravens had Prime Tucker, it was one of those factors that lingers over the game that affects how both teams play, knowing that, oh man, that dude can hit from almost 60. Like you got to think about that field position type of stuff a little bit more when you have a kicker like Boswell out there. And the Eagles don't have that. So that's an X factor for sure in the Steelers' favor. And again, field goals, this is this is the type of stuff that a Steelers 10-3 team versus a Eagles 11-2 team. The field goals, that's what this kind of game can come down to. Would anyone be surprised if Boswell was kicking the game winner from 52 in this one? Or maybe it comes down to the Eagles having Jake Elliott out there to kick a game-tying field goal from 50. What side do you like? What side are you putting your money on? I like Boz in those type of situations for sure, as I just laid out. Now, where do the Eagles maybe have the edge? All right. I'll give credit where credit is due. Saquon Barkley. He's probably the best running back in the league. So the Eagles are a little bit more prolific on the ground. I'll give them that. Steelers, we have a good run game with Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren. Russ can get outside the pocket a little bit. It was more of a run-heavy approach with Justin Fields for sure. But even then, I think the combo of Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, it's one of, if not the most prolific running attack in the league. And then their red zone offense, they've converted a little bit better than us over the course of the season, but I think we've picked it up over the last few weeks. I think people went overboard with that in that 2-game stretch by complaining about our red zone offense. I think it was the Ravens game, which we won 18-16. And then the Browns game, the first 2 quarters, we didn't score in the red zone. And maybe we didn't. Did we? Yeah, we scored in the red zone with Fields, the field drive. But then we didn't score another time in the red zone that game because I think Russ hit Calvin Austin from the high red zone. But since that, we've been fine. We've been fine scoring points. Last 2 games, we've put up 27 plus. The Bengals game, we put up 40 plus. Like, I'm not as concerned about that. But the Eagles have converted at a pretty high clip in the red zone. Outside of that, I don't know, man. Like, they got a good O-line. I like our O-line. Maybe we could say their receivers are better than ours right now, given that A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith is healthy. Now, Dallas Goedert, he's on IR. I don't think he's coming back for this game. So we have a healthy Muth. Obviously, we've been getting Darnell Washington involved in our offense, utilizing the tight ends. But Pickens is going to be out this game. So, yes, I think we can give the edge to the Eagles in terms of their receivers. But I like the matchup for our secondary. I really do. I think JPJ's built to be covering like an A.J. Brown. Dante Jackson, he should match up well against the Devonta Smith. Don't get me wrong. Each of those guys are really good. A.J. Brown's a bona fide top 10, maybe even top 5 receiver in the league right now. Devonta Smith's like at least top 15. Those guys are good. But as I mentioned with the quarterback play, man, as I mentioned, Jalen Hurts hasn't been it these last few weeks. He hasn't been getting his star playmakers the ball at a clip that you would like, that would make you feel confident that you're going to be able to replicate in this game, especially against a good secondary like the Steelers. Whereas Russell Wilson, we saw last week with no GP. That's what an elite quarterback can do. He can elevate what's around him. And don't get me wrong, Jalen Hurts is good. I just don't think he's doing that to the degree that Russell Wilson is right now. So I'm not as worried about what Russell Wilson is going to do in this game as opposed to what I think Eagles fans and how they should be feeling about Jalen Hurts in this game. I think Russ, he's going to be fine, man. He's going to pick his spots. You know, if it's ugly in the first half, that's fine. As long as it's a 1-score game, as long as the game's imbalanced one way or another, watch out for that second half because my man's going to cook. So I think this is going to come down to 2, 3, 4 plays. And I think this Steelers team has proven that they're going to make those 2 or 3 or 4 type of plays, those X-factor type of plays, whether it's Russ elevating and hitting on a 3rd and long, a deep ball to keep the series going or to keep the drive going and convert on a must-have-it drive and outplaying Jalen Hurts. Yeah, I like my chances there. Or maybe it's TJ getting a strip sack or it's a Dante Jackson pick. Boz making all of his field goals versus Jake Elliott maybe missing one. As we saw last week against the Browns, Boz made all of his field goals. Hopkins missed both of his. That was a factor in the game. That was kind of why we had things locked up at the end of the third quarter, early fourth quarter. Whereas in that Thursday night football game, again, it was like a calamity of errors. Balls don't miss field goals. What the heck's going on? Oh, Cleveland, that kicker made all their field goals. And you got the snow helping you out. And you got us turning the ball over. And you got us not converting on fourth down. Oh, but we still somehow climbed all the way back to get it to 19-18, 3 minutes left. It was just the Browns getting lucky with all those things going their way. And then some of the clock management stuff and the bad punt by just a very weird Thursday night game. But I digress. I like us in the big moments in this game, out executing this Eagles team. So 23-20. I think that's my score prediction. You got two good defenses, two teams that are going to like to run the ball, control the clock. So, I don't think this is going to be a shootout, but it can get to that point-ish, potentially in the second half. I could see some up-tempo stuff if one of these teams are down. And obviously, you're forced to pass. You're forced to get a little bit more of an uptick in your offense and a sense of urgency. But 23-20 feels about right. There might be a feeling out process in the first half. Maybe it's like 6-3 at halftime, but then it picks up in the second half. We get to 23-20. I think we'll do a good job on Barkley. Again, that's why I laughed at myself whenever I said, maybe we'll completely force the Eagles to be one-dimensional. I don't think we're going to do that. And I don't think they're going to stop running the ball like the Ravens do. When we talk about making the Ravens one-dimensional, it's more on their own volition. It's like they just decide to start randomly passing more than running, even though their running is actually still kind of effective, like it was in that 18-16 game. They were moving the ball with Derrick Henry. They just stopped handing it off to him for whatever reason. The Eagles, they're not going to do that. But I think we're going to neutralize Barkley to a degree where he doesn't go off for like a $160, $170, 2 touchdowns, nothing like that. Maybe he gets like 100 total yards. Maybe he gets like 110, 120 total yards. But it's going to be one of those games where the defense holds on. Like the defense does their job with him and puts the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands. And I think he makes a mistake or two. I think there is a strip sack by TJ or Herbig, or he throws an interception across the middle to like a Patrick Queen, or hopefully a Minkah Fitzpatrick. I would love to see Minkah Fitzpatrick getting a pick. But yeah, I don't think Hurst necessarily plays bad. I think he's just going to make that one mistake. Maybe there's 2 mistakes over the course of a game that help the Steelers get in proper field position, and we end up capitalizing on those mistakes like we have been doing all season. And we're going to be sitting at 11-3. Eagles are going to be sitting at 11-3 as well. Hopefully it increased our chances of getting this 1 seed and the Chiefs lose. I don't even know who the Chiefs play this week, but hopefully the Chiefs lose this week. Bills lose this week. We could lock up this division, then have our sights set on getting this bye for the playoffs. But let me read some of these comments before I get out of here. What do you guys think of this game? Steel City J says, is there any update on Roman Wilson, or is he done for the season? I mean, I think he's going to be healthy at some point. If he's not healthy right now, I don't know what the update is, to be honest with you. I don't know what his status is, but even if he's healthy, I think he's done. There's no way, man. There's no way. With how Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin have been connecting with Russ recently, the fact that we traded for Mike Williams and now Mike Williams is getting more incorporated. You see what Scotty Miller did last week. There's just no way the Steelers or Tomlin are going to trust a rookie Roman Wilson out there down the stretch or in a playoff game over any of those guys. So I think he's done for the season, but I don't think he's done for the season because he can't play. He's going to be unhealthy. I think it's just going to be, we're not going to have faith in him over any of the other receivers that we got right now. Pete Dorenza, if we can't run the ball, we're cooked. No, I don't think, I actually don't think that. If we can't run the ball, we're not helping our chances, but that just means we're going to have to sling it a little bit with Russ. And Russ can do that. Russ is capable. But I think we're going to be able to run the ball. It's going to be ugly. We're going to get almost like what I was saying with the Eagles and Saquon Barkley. he's gonna get his numbers. It's almost like whenever you go up against a Jamar Chase, you go up against elite players. They're gonna get some numbers. You just can't be hanging your hat on that. Or hanging your head, I'm sorry, on that and being like, man, and get discouraged and have bad energy and make it worse. He's gonna get his number. He's gonna get his numbers. It's gonna be like a bounce back the next play type of thing. So, and I think the same way for us. Like it's not gonna be pretty, and it wasn't pretty last week. It hasn't been pretty with the run game from like an efficient standpoint, but we've stuck with it, and it's had impact, particularly in the second half, because the defense started to get tired. They're not able to hang with a Najee Harris and able to tackle him, play in and play out. Same with like a Jalen Warren. I think we get over 100. Yeah, do we get, a buck 50? Do we get a buck 60, 70? No, I think both teams are gonna have success, gonna have over 100 yards on the ground, but it's not gonna be at the clip that each of these teams typically do against like weaker opponents or whenever they're having a really good day on the ground.